listening to the Rugby Coaches Corner podcast with your host, Andy Plimer. Bringing you up-to-date coaching concepts from the world of rugby. Sharing ideas to make the game better.
Okay, welcome to episode number 73 of the Rugby Coaches Corner podcast. I'm your host, Andy Plimer, and joining me today is Vicky Alexander. Vicky is currently coaching with the Richmond Women's coaching team in the Tyrrell's Premier 15s. She is also an RFU coach educator, a community rugby coach at Cobham RFC, as well as a school coach at Christ Hospital School in Horsham. She describes herself as a forwards coach in the making, and it's a pleasure to have her on the show. So welcome, Vicky.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries. How you doing?
Yeah, good.
All right. So when I invited you on, I asked you to fill out a form, and you wrote in that your role is forwards coach in the making. That's a pretty interesting one. What's the story there?
Well, I played loose forward pretty much all my rugby playing career, and then when coming to England and playing, the regulations were a bit weird. And one of the regulations in the league was that if you didn't have a front row or enough front row replacements, you pretty much forfeited the game. So playing 8 that day, I was captain. You know, you have to lead by example. Props had gone down, and they went, "We need a tight head." I was like, "Yeah, all right. It can't be that different sticking my head between two hips." Then so I just did it, and actually really enjoyed it. And so asked my husband, who's a prop, and just said, like, how do I do it? Like, just teach me the basics. And then that's where it went. I just converted.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So
was that the start of your kind of thirst for knowledge around the game and a bit of an interest in coaching as well?
Not so much coaching, because I was still playing at that point. But it was a bit more thirst for knowledge. It was like, why have I never done this? Why do people not say, why don't you just give it a go? Because up until then, it was a craft that I'd never wanted to even contemplate giving it a go.
For sure.
I'd always thought of myself as a bit of a terrier sort of player, running around the park, a bit like a dog terrier, just running around like a loose cannon. And then, moving into front row, it just adds a little bit of more dynamic, a physical dynamic to your game. So, which I really enjoyed.
Okay, cool. And so you touched on your playing a little bit there. What was your playing backstory growing up in New Zealand and then ending up in the UK?
Like any New Zealand kid, as soon as you can walk, you're out playing footy. It's just a way of life out there. You don't. I mean, I didn't know any other sport really until I went to school and started playing cricket and football and basketball. So yeah, it was just what you did. You just went and played rugby. So yeah, I played mixed age group rugby until couldn't do it anymore. Had a wee break, obviously in the teenage years, where the schools don't offer. Well, at that point they didn't offer rugby to girls. And then moved across after a friend. We were playing touch, and she said, "Why don't you give contact another go?" So I moved into club rugby, and never looked back.
Yeah, so that's an interesting one. Like being based here in Canada, when you hear of schools not offering rugby for girls, it's a real mind blower, because it's extremely popular here in Canada and really growing, even more so than the boys rugby is in schools.
Yeah, I mean that's seen around the world. Doesn't matter which country now. The growth of the girls' game, especially within schools, is massive. It must. I mean, I don't know the stats around it, but I know within the UK at the moment, and especially within my local area, girls' rugby is just up on the up and up. And I think that's more education for the teachers. There's more variety of rugby. There's not so much of the old school, just hit them up, hit hard. It's all about the contact. Whereas the women's game, it's highlighted in the last few World Cups that it's very much an evasion sport. It's creating those mismatches, the 2-on-1s, and then, the skill level around it is a lot higher. There's also the market for women. if you have a look around, even around the world now, the high level, the top 16 women's teams, they all look like women. They're all, they don't look like that old sort of 1960s, 70s rugby player that I remember, having any sort of contact with. They're athletes. They're fast. They're agile, and they're actually really beautiful to watch. So I suppose that's encouraging more girls to take up the sport, and there's more variety of the game out there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'll definitely touch on that further into the interview, because you're a strong advocate for growing the game for girls and women, and so yeah, we'll definitely come back to that. What about coaching in general? How did you originally start coaching, and how did you get the bug?
Oh, I got pregnant and couldn't play anymore.
That'll do it.
Yeah. So the belly grew. I decided my first year, so would have been 8 years ago now. I decided at that point to take up refereeing, because I didn't think that I was a good teacher. I wasn't confident to be able to convert what I wanted to achieve in words and into some kind of session. So I decided actually refereeing was probably where I wanted to go. What it enabled me to do is it gave me a better understanding of the laws and what the referee is looking for and how to coach better. So then when I did convert to coaching, which was 2 years later, it just came a little bit more natural. And again, I did that because I got pregnant again.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can't play when you've got a massive belly on you. So you had to do something else. And at the time, the club, the women's team that I was playing for, just needed an extra set of hands. And that's basically all I did. I just sort of did some closed skills work with the forwards and around body shape and body management. These girls, these women are not at that level. They were social players. So it's more around safety, making sure that it reduced the injuries. And if they did get injured, they were able to recover quicker.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. That like my wife played rugby for over a decade, and when we had our first child, she was one of 8 in her rugby team that got pregnant that summer, and basically the entire team was decimated overnight. I'm good mates with the coach too, so he was having a bit of a hard time about that, whilst being happy as well for everyone. But yeah, it's something that I think a lot of people miss in the men's game, is that just doesn't happen in the men's game. You don't miss key players and leaders from your team because they've moved on with their life and they decided to start a family. And it's an interesting one, and it sounds cool that you went the coaching route because of that.
Yeah, and it was after my last child. I mean, it was a brutal birth, and it would realistically, I couldn't go back to playing.
Right.
I certainly couldn't go back to playing at that level, even though it was social rugby. My body just couldn't cope with the knocks and the injuries. It was more the recovery time to then get back to work after being up with a baby. So it was either stay involved in the game, and the best way I knew how to stay involved with the game, other than refereeing, which by the way I think gives you the best say in the house. More women should do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Was to pass on my knowledge, and I think that's ingrained also in the culture of, I think, Southern Hemisphere rugby in general, is that you always give back to your club. Unlike England, where clubs are just down the road from each other, the nearest club for me, other than what was in my hometown, was probably a couple of hours drive away. So you're quite limited in your choice depending on where you live, obviously, in New Zealand. So it becomes a second home. And like most homes, if you've got your best mate, you'll turn up, and if they need something done, you're always the first one to give a hand.
Yeah.
And just with that background, that sort of that culture behind our club environment, it was something that I always wanted to do, was to give back. And at least depart some of my knowledge. If not my knowledge, then at least my enthusiasm and drive and passion around the sport to encourage more people to play.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. All right. Well, I mentioned in the intro the Tyrrell's Premier 15s.
Yeah.
It's been around for a while. What's a bit of a description of that tournament? It just recently got a big boost from the RFU financially.
Yeah, the
How's that going?
premiership. Yeah, the premiership for the women, it has been around for a wee while. And my first experience was 2006 when I arrived in England, was to set up shop at a premiership club. And, so I think with the Tyrrells, it was a rebranding. It was a bit of a cash injection, a little bit more of a direct pathway for those women to be able to, especially those who haven't gone through the new age grade pathway, to be picked up for the professional game, and to veer it down the professional route when it comes into the game, whenever that will come in. Yeah. So they, there are, I think there are 10 teams in the program at the moment, and yeah, I think it's really good. It's good to drive the game. The branding behind it means that girls playing at clubs have got something that recognises those women as well, and it's an event. So it's not just the premiership's playing. Actually, there's an event behind it, and a load of social media boosts, and hopefully in the future, the professionalism contracts. Those women will become a bit more full time, a bit like the men. The men are now.
Yeah, sorry, go.
No, I was going to say only time will tell.
Yeah, and I hope that comes sooner rather than later, because just watching the last two Women's World Cups, the standards have been unbelievable. The trajectory of how much improvement there's been, and how like it's just thoroughly enjoyable to watch as a fan.
Yeah, and you've got the top end, so the sort of like the top six international teams are just, it's mind-boggling where they've got to in the last 4 years. And then even the lower six teams within the world rankings, where they've come from in the last 4 years is probably a bigger growth. It's not seen as a bigger growth because the other six have always been strong. But you've got the likes of Spain and Hong Kong who have come through the ranks and have done phenomenally well. And their grassroots program that sits behind it is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's exciting, and hopefully it continues too. So at Richmond, what's your coaching role at Richmond, and what's your day to day look like with them when it's in season?
Yeah, so I'm an assistant coach at Richmond. I look after their second team, so I'm the lead coach on game day for the second team. I work predominantly with the forwards, and specialising mainly in the front row. And that's my task for this season is to make them strong and effective. And and that's something I'm really looking forward to, because I've always been passionate about forwards coaching, but this year I'm actually specialising solely with the front row, so I'm a bit more focused, a bit more specialised with what their roles and responsibilities and outcomes and their development pathway and what that looks like going forward. So and I've got somebody else, one of our other coaches with us, so there's two of us specialising in that. So I think the women this year are going to have some really good coaching going into next season, and hopefully we'll see that on the pitch. But normally we train on a Tuesday and Thursday, and it's a mixture of development, so an individual development. So some of them will be tasked with line out throwing and what that looks like, and depending on what their development plan looks like. So it could be throwing long ball, could be actually identifying that they need to nail that front ball. The height, the speed, how to throw in difficult conditions as well. So not just doing it on a nice day because it's lovely, actually doing it when it's pouring down with rain, when it's really windy, getting it right. So I'm a massive believer in feedback, and not just verbal feedback, but the visual and the feeling feedback. I think those who have got sensory deficiencies, they would make brilliant skills coaches, because they understand it from a different point of view. If you're blind, you've got all your other senses come in. If you're if you can't hear something, you've got to use all your other senses to be able to communicate. And I think if some players, use some of those other alternatives, then they can really hone down that skill.
Yeah, I think that.
But being able to,
you go.
Yeah, I was going to say, but being able to feel it in a different way, and then seeing an outcome. So having it videoed, if you're doing blind line out throwing, for example, and you're blindfolded, being able to video it so you can see, actually, this is what it looks like when I can't see it.
Yeah, that's great. That's cool. That's like it goes to what one of my former guests, Dr. Nick Winkleman, who's head of performance at the IRFU. His big area of study is around external cueing and focusing on things that are not part of your body, but that you can sense or you can see, and that goes right down that path.
Yeah, there's I've done a fair bit of research over the last few months, but mainly within baseball from a closed skill, because obviously line out throwing is a closed skill. Yeah. And within baseball, especially if you're a pitcher, under pressure, you've got 3 on the base, you've got to get that person out. All those other environmental factors that come into that one particular throw can make or break the game, can win or lose that particular match for you. So being able to really hone them down in a different way under that kind of pressure is something that is appealing to me, and being able to add that in. And it's really difficult when you've only got 2 hours at training.
For sure.
Because you've got to add this particular thing. You've got to be able to, run through your lineouts, get your scrum right, get your plays from and to and from it. And then you've got, all the other stuff, your game plays, your understanding of why we're doing things. That all has to happen in that 2-hour block, because they're not professional. Once it goes professional, you then end up with, 6 hours a day, and you've got all the time in the world to to practice it and paint different pictures for them.
For sure. Okay, well, in the last couple of years, it's you just by our communication before the show, you've been super busy on the coaching side of things. What have been some of the biggest coaching learnings you've taken in the past few years that have really been like aha moments kind of things?
I was on a sevens coaching CPD a couple of months ago, and I was preparing my video for my level 3 application, and there was something missing in my. I practiced the video, and I wasn't quite happy with it, and I thought there's something missing. Just couldn't put my finger on it, and then I went to the CPD thinking, I'm not really a sevens coach. Probably not going to be a sevens coach in the future, but I went along because there's always you always learn something. And lo and behold, he ran this sort of 1v1. It was very simple, little box, 1v1, all about beating the defender, but looking for the cues. And it sort of just clicked, and I went, oh my God, that's what's missing. I was like, right, I need to go back. And so I literally just sort of wrote it all down, took video of it, and then gone, right. And then I went back to practice it, and it just flowed. So from worrying about the video going in to actually having that little piece of, and it just seemed so simple. And I was like, why did I not think about that? I was overthinking it, but why did I not think about that? It was really good. And other than that, it's the sheer joy in converting players to front row. I
love it.
I just love it. And I coach at Cobham, their girls section, and every single one of those players who come through that program, every single one of them gets front row trained. Because as a youth player, I have no idea what their body shape's going to look like as an adult. I have no idea if they're going to spend, half their time at Burger King and, eat their way through the entire menu, or whether they're going to become and still be athletic when they become an adult into uni. So for me, if I can give them all the tools and be able to paint different pictures, help them paint different pictures, and they're not afraid to front row, they're going to be just like me and say, it can't be that hard. I've done the basic training. I'll put my hand up and do it, because any game time is better than sitting on the bench or having no game time. So, for me, converting players into front row players, or, when they give it a go and they go, wow, I really like that. Why have I not done it before? That for me is, I think that's my biggest win through my entire coaching portfolios, is those little points where, you know, they're quick wins for teams, especially within the girls section. A lot of them, the younger youth girls, they don't want to play it. They see it as, I'm going to get big shoulders, I'm going to get a big neck, because that's what they see on TV with the men. You know, but the men train full time. They eat they eat for their body. They fuel for their for that purpose. They're not 16, 17-year-old girls who just need to have good shape, be safe, and then get out and enjoy it. So for me, they're my big wins.
Yeah, well, that's a really good point. It comes up a bit on the show, and I do the same with my, like, I'm not a scrum coach, don't pretend to be. Sometimes I have to be, but I get all my kids in my high school program to be practicing 1v1, 2v1. Just, yes, one day they may be a prop, but also just for general body positioning, tackling and rucking. So I think I think you're definitely onto something there. You do it far better than I would, no doubt, but I think it's something that I think coaches should really explore.
I think, yeah, especially at school, or I would love the holistic view of coaching approaches, which is get rid of forwards coaches, sort of get rid of backs coaches, especially within youth rugby, unless obviously you're at one of those, you know, a school that is dedicated to rugby, or, you know, at that professional level, of course, where you need the specialist skills. And just go and say, right, we're going to be attacks and we're going to be a backs coach, or I'm going to be a skills coach, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that, and explore every option. You know, because yes, it is. It can be difficult to coach the scrum if you've never done it before. But you know, I've never been a backs coach, but I can still coach go forward, continuity. You know, and apply different pressures for them to create those pictures of the 1v1s and to create those mismatches so that we can score. I will never be as good as, you know, backs coaches that are in the professional game, but from a basic level at youth rugby or at club rugby, that's all that's needed. That's basically, you know, get the ball, run forward, pass backwards, and tackle somebody in a different coloured shirt.
Yeah, that's it. Like, I think at the youth level, it's I don't even coach backline moves, so I let the players decide. I just ask them. I just let them know where I want it to kind of be, what channel I want it to be in, and then they decide it. But the reality is, they're so new to rugby that they never actually run them anyhow. So we spend very little time on it. But like you say, we're spending a lot of time on the principles of play of rugby, how to get the ball back in defence, and how to be safe in set piece. I think that's where you get more bang for your buck.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, you know, it's really clear that you're a passionate advocate for growing the women's game. I just learnt that it's Cobham, not Cobham. I pronounced the R.
Oh,
That's incorrect. Okay.
Cobham.
All right. So you're a community coach at Cobham Women's Rugby. What are some of the things that you're doing to try and grow the game there around recruitment and selling the game and you know, creating the image of rugby that we want it to be and not what some people might have preconceived?
I find within our section, social media is a massive tool. Using social media, providing little snippets of video, and choosing your images carefully. So having them being the image, I would never have my face. I've definitely got a face for radio, so I would never have my face plastered all over social media. You know, those players are the biggest advocates of the game, and everybody, all shapes and sizes, all heights, they all get all their images are plastered over it, doing different things. So anything from tackling to running into space, you know, all of that kind of thing is all plastered all over social media, and then getting them to buy into the sharing of that as well. We do open days where they can bring a friend along. We do fun days, and all of that stuff, when it goes out, when girls see it, they go, oh, I want to do that. You know, they see our Christmas day and we're all dressed up in funny Christmas outfits playing rugby. And like, oh wow, it's not it's not professional. It's not, it's not an angry sport. It's something that we all have fun at. In addition to the girls being big advocates, the parents are as well. We have a big parent social network, and all it takes is for them to say to somebody, their kids brought a friend over, or they're at school doing pickup and they're talking about it because they enjoy it. And I think it needs to be enjoyable for the parents. They're the ones who are doing all the driving around and pickups and drop-offs, and they pay the fees and they sort all the kit and they wash it, and they take other people's kids. They need to be advocates. It can't be a chore for them.
Yeah, and I think they'll be your most powerful advocates too, because probably the list of things that people are going to be concerned of who don't understand rugby, safety will be number one. And if their first thing out of their mouth is to say, no, it's actually a very safe sport, you've got a great coach there, and here's what's happening there, that's going to be huge.
Yeah, absolutely. In addition to that, we do. I'd go in and actually deliver PE sessions for rugby during one of their terms. They'll get rugby, and I've got a really detailed 6-week program to get them contact ready within 6 weeks. And we literally start off with the basics. We start off with tag rugby or ripper rugby in New Zealand, and the concept of ripper rugby is fairly similar to union, because it's catch, pass, run forwards, get caught, pass the ball. You're always looking to keep the ball alive. And then, we take the belts off, and it's almost like a safety belt. The girls at secondary school have already played tag rugby, so it's something familiar. And it's that first session where they go, I've played this, I know this, I enjoyed this, I had fun doing this. So I'm going into rugby already overcoming the barriers that they would have already put up as in year 7.
Yeah.
And then we move on, and then we sort of drive it over the 6-week period, doing really fun games, breaking that skill down, the contact skills, into things like bear crawling and having races. And as long as they're laughing and having fun, they don't know that they're learning the game. And then all those little pieces of puzzles that I've given them in those short bursts in PE all come together in after school club. And we then put them into practice. And we put them into practice under very, very little pressure, because they don't need it. They just need to be able to have fun and learn it. And then from that, it's then driving, after that 6 weeks, the buy-in from the schools is really important, that the PE department are also retweeting, sending out messages to the schools. We offer discount memberships just to be able to get them in the door. And then, it's just a matter of keeping them active. We have a very inclusive club, and that's evident with the variety of girls that we have. And I've run programs for disadvantaged kids right through to where we have an ethnic diversity. So I'm making sure that any sessions that we have are suitable for anybody with religious concerns, or any who have mental health issues. So we're really trying to grow the game, but not just for the athletes, but for anybody who want to give it a go, regardless of whether they feel like an outcast because they might have Asperger's, or when we have them and they come to us, and I have a young girl who's got autism, and the biggest joy was a few weeks ago we went on tour and had a TENS tournament, and the biggest smile on her face for being involved and active, and her mum said, I can't believe she, one, stayed overnight without me being there, and secondly, that she was happy and playing. I've never seen her smile so much.
Awesome. That's great.
Because we create that environment, and that over and above the rugby, that's more important.
Yeah, for sure.
Because if the environment created is good and healthy, the more girls will come.
Yeah, and we were talking before recording that just this week, actually, ironically, World Rugby put out they've started a big campaign titled "Start Rugby, Become Unstoppable." So there's definite interest and support and growing momentum to really develop and boost the women's game and the girls' game.
Yeah, which I think is great. And it's great that World Rugby have put it out there, because every country have had their own version of something similar.
Yeah.
And now there's just a banding around it from our global organisation that recognises that actually this is something that we should be talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
And sharing.
Yeah, for sure. And, with any of these kind of things, there's always going to be some challenges to growing a sport, whether it's men's or women's. What particular have you come across with your work growing the girls' game and the women's game that might help, say, someone out there who's considering doing similar work?
I would, in your head, start stakeholder mapping and going, right, who can help influence me, who can help me, because I think the rugby community itself is, you've got sort of two sections. You've got a massive group, and again, I wouldn't know the stats around it, but you have probably more people who are willing to share, willing to open up and help you by saying, hey, I did this, or why don't you go here and try this, or I know this person, shall I link you up, compared with the closed doors. And there are a number of closed doors people, and it's the closed doors ones that you'll never have a chance of breaking them. So as famous as they might be, as you might think that they're influenced, just sort of probably steer clear of them. Always start with your local body and then go from there. Find out who's doing it well and ask, can I come and watch? What are you doing? And learn from them, because there's a lot of things that I've done that I wish I knew not to do. And then there's stuff that I've taken from other people and go, oh, wow, I really like that idea. I'm going to take it and develop it. But again, that's what coaching's all about. You take somebody else's idea or plan and you go, oh, I like that. I'm going to add this, or I'm going to take away that, because that doesn't matter to me so much and my outcomes. And then you create your own, and then somebody else will look at it and go, oh, I like that, I don't like that. So just take what you can, learn what you can, get online, and there are loads of different coaching groups out there. They're global Facebook, global groups that you can just log into and ask questions, and you'll get information back, and just take what you like and discard the rest.
Yeah, awesome.
And get a good team of parents behind you, because if you've got a good team behind you, whether it's parents, players, partners, community people, whoever it might be, get a good group behind you, because it is hard work doing it on your own, and it can be soul destroying when you have those losses, and they're a bit continual, and then before you get another win, that can be soul destroying. And when you're doing it on your own, so get a good team behind you to help.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's great advice. Can definitely resonates for sure. In case you weren't busy enough, you've just decided to start up a project titled Diddy Rugby at Cobham. Can you're saying it's launching this weekend? Can you tell us a little bit about that program and what's going on there?
Yeah, so Diddy Rugby is owned and operated by Vicky McQueen. She's an ex-England player, and she runs these as franchises. So Cobham Rugby Club have invested in the franchise, but partly because with Diddy Rugby, they offer rugby-based or rugby skills-based activities for the 18-month to 6-year bracket. It's a demographic that I don't currently coach in regularly. And I wholeheartely believe, for the benefit of the club and the growth of the club, it was the right way forward within the community department. It's an addition for our community project, and we'll be offering services into schools similar to what I do currently with the secondary schools and nurseries, and it's just getting them active. It's getting them active, getting getting them confident with a ball in the hand, and doing activities and making them agile, and all the fun stuff that you see on a Saturday or Sunday down at your local club. But it's indoors, so they're warm. Because there's nothing I hate worse on a Saturday or Sunday than seeing all those little 4 and 5 year olds out there freezing cold in the middle of winter. And so it as a demographic of players, it adds to the portfolio that we've got at Cobham. But it was also a way for me to try and drive more girls younger. Girls seem to drop off physical activity a lot earlier. And you see it now in schools, especially within primary schools. So I think the stats out are that they drop off around year 7, but I think they actually drop off around year 5. So that's around 9 or 10, which is fairly typical with the average or the typical 9 and 10-year-old who are starting to develop at that particular age. And so a lot of their physical activities drop off because it's not something that they want to continue. So I'm hoping that if something becomes a little bit more accepting, there's a woman that's leading it at the club, there's more girls that will continue playing, and hopefully we can build from the bottom up and just make it the norm.
Yeah, oh, that's great. That's exciting, and yeah, trying to reach out to as many people possible makes all the sense. So yeah, that sounds great. And another thing that you're trying to do is it sounds horrible to me, but you must be into it. Is the Vienna Marathon in 2020 as part of the Rugby Open's Border project. What's the deal there?
So 2012, I think it was, I ran the London Marathon.
Right, great.
Well, I say I ran it. I did it with a selfie stick and pretty much laughed my way around, saying, look at me, look, I'm going over the London Bridge. And about 2 years ago, I was invited to go to Vienna to go and visit the Rugby Opens Borders project. And while I was there, I got to meet some refugee and migrants, mainly children. So these are lone children who either during their journey had lost their parents or had been sent across by their parents. And so the Austrian Rugby Union, the clubs in Vienna had got together and organised for the Rugby Opens Borders project. And they basically deliver rugby to those lone, at that point they were mainly boys, and they were starting to introduce girls. And I touched on it before about those rugby clubs in New Zealand being second homes for people. And this gave them a purpose.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I don't speak Austrian, and I had a translator with me, but some of their stories were absolutely horrific. And it just, as a mother, it tore at my heartstrings. And I was like, that's just, I don't even contemplate that I even understand the wars that are going on and the horrific things that are happening in their own countries. But as a human, it really touches you that these kids have gone through horrific things to get to where they've got to, have lost pretty much everything. And this club has opened up their doors. They will feed them. They'll let them take showers. They, give them any equipment that they need to be able to play rugby. And over the years, they've actually converted some of them to become club members.
Yeah, that's great.
They've helped them think everything from, getting English lessons to learning Austrian, learning German, depending on where they are, so that they can be able to integrate with society really, a lot easier. I think I was quite ignorant before I went over there about what was going on. And I was like, there was nothing I could do to help them. I don't live there, so I couldn't offer my time. So I said to them, well, I will raise some money, and that money will go towards the food costs for feeding more of these kids, because they're a non-profit organisation.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, well, why don't I just come back to Austria and I'll run the marathon? I happened to have been there the day the marathon was on.
Right.
So it's an absolutely beautiful city.
Yeah, it's stunning.
And I went, oh, well, I could just run that. I've had babies. I can run a marathon.
It's too easy.
It's a walk in the park.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was like, yeah, I'll just do that for you. So that's my little project, and I start training at some point.
Yeah, well, I'll keep track of it too, and as you push stuff out on social media, I'll be sure to retweet it. And so that's a great cause, and good on you for doing it.
Yeah, yeah, it was just, I think it just touched my heart, and there are loads of deserving charities and things like that out there. But when you actually, put some time and effort into anything, you just feel like you've given yourself a little bit, and you want to do a little bit more for them.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, we always end the show with the same final 4 questions. When you were a kid growing up in New Zealand, who was one of your favourite players going around at that stage?
As a kid, it would have been Anna Richards.
Yeah.
She'll hate me for saying that because she's not that much older than me. But as a woman player, she was one of the few women players that I knew who was playing rugby at that high level. Certainly, as a young girl growing up in New Zealand, I mean, my favourite players were always the All Blacks. Yeah. It didn't really matter who they were. The Sean Fitzpatricks. They all come to mind. Zinzan Brooke as a kid, and of course it's different now. Especially back home. I mean, rugby wasn't televised, especially international rugby wasn't televised that often. But we always got you always went to the All Blacks games, and that memory, you had a Weet-Bix book, and you'd be able to go and collect the autographs.
Yeah,
after all the kids would run out on the pitch and go and see their stars, and can't do it nowadays. No. Health and safety.
Yeah, classic. All right, what about now? Who are some of the players going around that you really like watching and what they're doing?
I would definitely say Sarah Byrne. She's an incredible prop. She's very, very skillful, but her work rate around the park is incredible. She's almost like an energizer. She's got energizer batteries in her that just don't seem to run out. So she's definitely up there.
That's cool. And what about coaches? Who's a coach, a high-profile coach that you like what they're doing?
Well, I mean, at the beginning you said I was, a forwards coach in the making.
You said that actually, not me.
Yes, I did say that. Yes, I would love to be eventually. Certainly, it's going to take a lot of work but I would like to be up there with the Graham Roundtrees, the Adam Joneses of this world who coach the forwards, and eventually that's that legacy that I'll leave behind.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's it's very, very technical and skilled position, and the best in the world are pretty amazing.
No, definitely. And then adding somebody like Rocky Clark to the mix. I think if I had the 3 of them, I would have the most, the incredible forwards coach if I had a little bit of everything from all of them.
Awesome. And last question, who's a coach or coaches in your local community who are doing some really great work in the grassroots that deserve some recognition?
There are definitely plenty of them. The coaches that I work with at Richmond are definitely up there. So you've got Mike Panaho, who another Kiwi. We get everywhere.
Yeah.
And they're the ones who are they're teaching me and allowing me the freedom to be creative within my role, which it is really important for me to grow. We want players to do that, and without strings and be creative. But it's also really important that you, within your coaching team, you have that element of creativity and trust there as well. So I've got Mike, and then I also I have worked with a local coach called Jake Cottrell, who currently works with the Met Police,
right,
and with the Met Police team. And when I first met him, I thought he was like Marmite. I really just didn't think I would ever get along with him, and yet a few training sessions later, and I was a complete convert.
Yeah.
He says things like he means it, and there's just no mucking around with him. But he's got this soft side that he's quite able to sort of to break down what he's trying to achieve in a really nice manner. The language skills that he's got with his coaching are really good, and that's something that I would love to learn more and more of with him, is to be able to get the language right.
Yeah. All right, Vicky. Well, it's been great chatting with you. I've really enjoyed it, and sounds like you're doing some amazing work with Cobham and with Richmond, and you've definitely got your plate full with your various projects, along with being an awesome mum at the same time. So keep up the great work, and good chatting with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Rugby Coaches Corner podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a review via iTunes and keep listening for the next episode. You can also follow us via Twitter at Rugby Coaches CNR or via the website therugbycoachescorner.com. Until next time, keep sharing ideas to make the game better.